Hi, and welcome to the Creative Work Seniors Resource Center, presented by Fruitful Communities. Thank you everyone here in the audience for coming and everyone who connected online at home. Today, our workshop is Elder Abuse Awareness. My name is Sarah, and I will be hosting today's workshop alongside our guest speaker, Victoria. Victoria, thank you so much for coming. It's good to have you.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate you joining us here at Fruitful Communities. Before we begin, let's get started with an icebreaker activity to warm up as a warm-up exercise. Then I'll ask you a little bit of questions about yourself so that we can get to know you a little bit.
Yes.
Our icebreaker question is, who is the person you admire most and why? And everyone feel free to share in the chat who you most admire and why. And Victoria?
In person, I admire my mother. My mother was a praying woman. She taught me to love the Lord. I was raised in a Christian environment. As a child, she would take me wherever she goes. And at nights, even at nights, we go to prayer meeting. I would be falling asleep walking behind her because we didn't have a car in Jamaica, so I had to walk. And so she's one of the most admired individual as a human. And then Jesus. Jesus is next because when I think of him giving his life for me, it is such a powerful example of love. And I really admire Jesus for sacrificing himself for me. Then my community at large, the people I serve, the people that I work with, and my church.
Wow, we have a lot of people you're inspired, that you're admired by. Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to say the person I admire the most, I'll say two people as well, my mom and dad, because I'm thinking about my childhood as well growing up, and they're always there supporting me. So yeah, that's great. Do we have any comments from the chat? No? All right, no problem. So Victoria, let's get to know you a little bit better. You said that you're from Jamaica?
Yes, I was born in Jamaica in the parish of Westmoreland. I went to school in Savannah-la-Mar, that's a city, And after graduation, I went to Kingston, did my nursing. I did my nursing in Jamaica, and then I graduated and went to Port Maria General Hospital. I work in emergency, I work in med-surg and maternity. And then in 1970, the 8th of August, I came to Canada. 2 weeks later, I worked at a nursing home, one of the City of Toronto nursing home, Kipling Acres in Rexdale. And I worked there for 12 years while I was going back to school part-time. After that, I transferred to work for the City of Toronto as a social service caseworker. I worked there for about 12 years. Then I transferred to work at the Workers' Compensation Board to work as an employment counselor. And that position is where I would mediate modified employment with injured workers. So if a worker would be injured on the job and they're ready to go back to work, but not fully healed enough, the employer would create modified employment for those individuals. So I worked there for a short time, and then they said they were going to lay us off. I called my employer at the City of Toronto. I went back and worked as a caseworker until my retirement in 2015.
Wow, that is a lot of jobs. Which one, I guess it would be hard to pick a favorite, but which one had the most experience that had the most impact on you?
The most impactful one is working at the City of Toronto.
Toronto, wow.
Because most of the clientele were individuals that were applying for social assistance. Some of them need housing, some need jobs. So those were individuals that were in great need. So I developed the capacity and the ability to provide support for them. So I enjoyed that the best.
Oh, so you really enjoyed the helping people.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's great.
yes.
Well, then we're glad to have you here talking about elder abuse.
Yes.
A really sensitive topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're ready to get into the presentation now.
Yes.
Can we please pull up the presentation? Thank you.
So I'll just take a look at the statistic. So according to the General Social Survey in Canadian Safety, there are about 128,000 senior victims of violence in Canada in 2019. And the overall, 3/4 of the 76% of seniors who reported experiencing violent victimization in 2019 were physically assaulted. And that was just what was reported.
Some just what was reported.
Yes, some was not reported.
Many cases, though, aren't reported,
Correct,
right? Yeah.
correct.
That's
And
a
in
lot.
2020, the overall rate of police-reported seniors victimization in the province was higher in rural areas to urban areas. 247 versus 214 per 100,000 population.
Rural, that's out in the countryside, right? So
Correct.
I assume maybe because there's not as many resources out there, maybe not as many people are witnessing things if you're in the city walking around.
Correct.
You know, maybe.
Correct. And in the city, houses are closer. And apartments are closer, and people can hear or see and then report the abuse. Yes. So again, violence against senior and their perception of safety in Canada has increased, and this is just an awareness that we want to show to our community at large, and particularly to seniors, because seniors are very vulnerable, especially when they're lonely. And so we want them to be aware of what is happening in the community.
Yeah, it must be so hard, though, if you're isolated by yourself and then to have to report something, especially if it's from someone you know really closely. That's really hard.
Yes. And sometimes it's the individuals that are caring for the seniors, or the seniors rely on this individual or develop a trust. They're the ones that sometimes abuse the elderly.
Do you think maybe sometimes people can't see it because they trust them so much? They think, no, they're not taking advantage, or they're not. Do you think maybe that happens sometimes?
There are some seniors who are very lonely. And I'm, as I speak, I'm thinking of one particular a senior that would give money to someone just to be with them. It's not a paid, not a job, but if they want to go, for example, to the bank, they would pay someone, they would buy them items, they would give them things just for the support. They're not the caregivers. They're just individuals that they would be in contact with and want to give them funds in order to assist them. So they're very vulnerable in those areas.
Wow. So what are some of the different types of elder abuse?
Can we change the, okay. So there are various types of elder abuse, and it says anyone can be abused regardless of their age, sex, color, religion, or ethnicity, or cultural background. Every year, a large number of persons over 60 suffer abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. Elder abuse refers to any intentional action or inaction that actually harms or put an older adult at risk for harm. It can also be defined as any action or inaction in a relationship where there's a trusting expectation that causes harm to an elderly person and put their welfare or health at risk. There are various types of abuse faced by elders. So there's a physical abuse. There's that picture of a caregiver holding
Aggressively
on an elderly person. For example, I'll give you a story of when I worked in the nursing home. An elderly person is transferred into this new environment. She's brought in, she's brand new, and a nurse approached this elderly lady, and instead of introducing herself, for example, my name is Victoria, I'll be your caregiver today. This is the nursing home. You're brought in today for us to care for you. She did not do that. She approached the elderly lady and began to take her clothes off. The elderly lady pushed her back. And the next thing I know, she kicked this elderly lady. And I saw that. Anger rose up in me. And I said, I can have you fired immediately. I was so upset by seeing this that I threatened to have her fired. And I said, if I see you do that again, you'll be outside. And she apologized to this lady. But this is some of the things.
That's disgusting.
This is some of the things that happen to elderly individuals. They are brought into a nursing home. The staff are not trained on how to introduce them to their environment, to settle them and say, you're welcome here. This is a nursing home. This is your bed. I'm your caregiver, etc. Those are areas that need to be improved on.
Yeah, I mean, as a human being, I mean, you want someone to actually explain that to you. To just barge in and then, I can't even.
And that has happened, and that is even happening today, because a lot of caregivers are working on 2 jobs. And they run from one job to the next, and by the time they get to the next job, they're tired. So those are some of the things.
They just forget why they started in the first place.
So those are some of the things that are happening to our elderly family members.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? So physical abuse is defined as the purposeful use of physical force against an elder that result in disease, discomfort, injury, functional impairment, distress, or death. This includes hitting, kicking, pushing, slapping, or burning. Even burning an elderly with a cigarette. Their individual would do those cruel things to an elderly person. There was recently, a couple of years ago, where a young man was charged, he worked in a nursing home, sexually abusing an elderly person. So those are things that happen in our community that we hardly hear of. It would come over on the news and we just fly by, but we do not take notice of it. But today, this workshop is for everyone that is listening to be aware of the discomfort, the pain that elderly individuals face, either in nursing homes or in the community. It is very important that if you have an elderly person in a nursing home, you visit as often as you can. Don't just leave them there. Don't just leave them and think that they're getting the best of care, because often there is abuse. and we need to take the best care of our elderly. They have worked, they have built our community, they have paid taxes, and we're enjoying some of the things that they've worked for. Therefore, it's important to provide support for our elderly people.
I respect them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 Could I have the next slide, please? Sexual abuse comprises any type of force or unwanted sexual contact with an older adult. This could involve intrusive sex, penetration, or non-contact behavior like sexual harassment. So some of these things do happen in nursing homes and in the community.
I think it's important to say this because when you think of elder abuse, this wouldn't be the first thing I would think of. I think about like the physical and maybe financial, but this does happen, right? So.
Yes, yes. Financial abuse, we'll get to that, but that's another serious abuse that happens even in families. Mm-hmm. So we have to be aware and prepare as we get older, prepare on what to do. As I become older, one of the things I did, I didn't share all of my story. I adopted 6 children. 4 of them are orphans. Their mom died, and then they're 6 months apart from their dad. And I went to Jamaica, adopted them, and brought them to Canada. And then I have 2 others that I adopted, 2 older ones, and they're all in Canada, and they're my children. I was married but no children, and I adopted 6 children. What I wanted to share was as I get older, I began to think of my aging process. And I'm saying to any elderly individual online right now listening, it's important that you prepare for the aging process. Make some preparation. Look at wills, look at power of attorney, look at your children. Determine which two you trust the most to manage your care and your finances. It's so important that you do that. Don't take it for granted. If you have no children, look for a trusted individual. Because one of the things that happens, if you have assets and if you have a home and you have no power of attorney or wills, after your death, the government takes over those assets. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that you begin to think and prepare for those times in your life when you're not able to manage your own financial situation.
Yeah, and I think also maybe to prepare even before that, because when you get older and you need more help and there's dementia and stuff, it's nice to already be prepared so that when you get to that stage, it's not anyone coming to help you.
Exactly.
You already have it set up.
Exactly.
Because then it'll be too late, right? And
exactly.
So
yeah.
Prepare, yeah.
Exactly. Next slide, please. Emotional or psychological abuse refers to a verbal or nonverbal action that cause an older adult anxiety, embarrassment, or disrespect, verbal and nonverbal threats, harassment, and social or geographical isolation are a few examples. So social isolation and geographical isolation are some of the main examples. When you have no one, for example, there are a lot of individuals in Canada who have no family member here.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be surprised to know the numbers of elderly people living in Canada with no family member. And geographical isolation is individuals that live out in the country or live in a neighborhood where the homes are sparse, mm-hmm. and they have not developed a connection with a neighbor. So it's so important that as not even wait until you're elderly, as you said earlier, but volunteer somewhere while you can. Develop a connection. Develop some trusting relationship. For me, I have a church For me, I have communities that I volunteer in. I volunteer in many boards. So I have individuals that I know very well, that I've trusted and can trust and can assist in speaking to my children about how are you treating your mom. So, it's so important that we develop those connections and not be isolated. When you begin to volunteer, people know who you are. You develop relationships, and that relationship I have friends in Canada that I've developed for 52 years in Canada. I have friends for 52 and more years, and I still connect with them. So it's so important that you develop that connection. I know sometimes people are afraid to trust and feel, that I want to be by myself. I don't want to develop relationship. But we have to begin to learn to trust those who we can trust. And it's learning. You can't trust me if you don't know me. So learn to know me. Develop a relationship with me and trust me so that when I need you, I can call on you, anyone.
Yeah.
So that's so
Your
important.
support system.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yes. Yes. So neglect is the inability to provide for seen as basic necessities: food, water, housing, clothing, hygiene, and basic medical care are among the needs. So neglect. Sometimes even family members can become neglectful. And it's hard to understand why a family member would neglect their parent. But let me just share with you some of the things I've heard. A child might neglect her parent because of a situation when they were young, something that happened.
Oh, holding a grudge.
Exactly. And there's unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is one of the most powerful tool that can destroy any relationship. Unforgiveness. Unforgiveness, they say, is like you have not forgiven me, and I have not forgiven you. Although I have an ought against you, I go to bed at night, but you're with me in bed. I haven't forgiven you, and I hold you in my heart, and I take you to bed with me at night. Can you imagine that? Someone you don't like is in bed with you? That's what unforgiveness is. And unforgiveness causes all kinds of disease. Mental illness, Alzheimer's, pains, arthritis, all kinds of things that elderly people experience are caused by unforgiveness. So my encouragement to elderly people, just look at individuals that have hurt you, have caused you harm, that you have not forgiven, and ask for forgiveness. Heal that broken area, heal that pain so that you can remain healthy and heal, or you will have other disease that spring from unforgiveness. And that's another topic altogether. But I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Financial abuse is the illegal, yes, it's the illegal, unauthorized, or improper use of elders' money, benefit, belonging, property, or assets for the benefit of someone other than the older adult. I will share a true story. This is true. A family member, a cousin, her husband died, and when he died, the mortgage for the house was paid off. She later had a stroke and was in the hospital. She had 3 kids. One of the kids was in trouble, so he was out of the picture. The second boy, he went to university, was very smart. And then the younger girl, who was still at home, I got a call from him to say, Mom was unconscious in the hospital. I need to be a power of attorney. So while she was in bed in the hospital, I was visiting. He sent the blank power of attorney for me to sign. I said to the individual, I will not sign this. You go back and tell him I will not sign it. The next thing I knew, and I did not know until after the fact, and I'll go back a little bit, he called me a week earlier to say, call Mom and tell her she has to be put in a nursing home. I am putting her in a nursing home. I said, how are you going to put her in a nursing home? She's at home. All she needs is some home support.
Does
And he
she
said,
want to go into
no, he had no discussion with her. She didn't know that, but he was asking me to speak to Mom. And I said, no, I'll come over and see her tomorrow to have a conversation with her. I went over and I asked her, did you say you want to go into a nursing home? She said, no, I had no conversation with him. The next thing I know, I got a call a week later to say the sheriff was coming to put her out of the house. I called her and I said, do you know anything about this? She said, no. I went over, I took her to the bank. There was no mortgage at the bank. I checked her account. All I know, $1,400 was being deducted out of her account on a monthly basis. This is a true story. For those that are listening, take this to heart. Take this and think about it. The next thing I know, I got this call to say she's going to be put out of her house. I went to the house the next day. She was sitting on the front porch with a phone in her hand and the clothes on her back, and her door was locked by the sheriff because the mortgage of $450,000 was not paid. In the meantime, $1,400 was deducted from her TD account each month. Where did that money go?
Wow.
I did something that I shouldn't have done. I went to an individual that was a mortgage broker, and I wanted to know who has the mortgage on the house. It wasn't a bank. It was another company somewhere that put that $450,000 mortgage on the mother's house. It wasn't being paid, although he was taking $1,400 each month out of her account.
Wow.
It broke my heart. The next day when I went, she was sitting on the front porch. I called the name of the individual that put the lock on, and I said, I'm going to the news. These are real stories. I'm calling the news because this lady is sick. She just came out of the hospital with a stroke.
Where's her medication?
No medication.
In the house, right?
Locked in the house
Locked
with
in
her
the
clothes. All she had was the phone and the clothes on her back. So they said to me, we'll send someone to open the door so she can get her medication and some clothes. And that's all she got out of the house. Her furniture, they put it out a couple of weeks later on the front porch. She had renovated that house from top to bottom.
Because she didn't know. She had no idea this was going to happen. That's so sad.
But I'm just giving this story to say, when you make your power of attorney, if you have 2 children, make sure you put both of their names on the power of attorney. If you have a cousin and a child, you make sure 2. Because when one is raging about money, the other one might be quiet to say, let's change it. If you have not got a power of attorney or a will, I'm encouraging you, those that are listening to my voice, those that are on this line this morning, it is important that you do that. You're protecting your asset. You're protecting yourself. Make sure you know who you're added as a second signature on your bank account, because that too can be dangerous. She lost her house. She got nothing. Today, as I speak to you, she's staying with a friend. That is so important that elderly people, not even elderly people, younger people too, because the young die as well as the old. The young can be ill as well. But those are things that our community need to know and to be prepared for.
Yeah, they need to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And someone you trust, definitely.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
Wow. It's
Next
really
slide, please. So fraud is when someone files false health claims so they can profit from it. Mental and emotional effects, anxiety, hypervigilant, increased blood pressure, feeling of embarrassment, shame and grief. Romance scam. Romance scam, I'm sure a lot of us have seen it on TV. Dr. Phil does a lot of those shows where romance scam, where individuals come on the line and tell you that they love you and they want to have a relationship with you.
I've not heard of this.
Yes,
That's what the
romance
scam
scam.
is? They want to have a relationship.
Online.
Oh.
Online scam. So they tell you they would love you, you send a picture, they send a picture, and before you know it, you
Send me
begin,
money.
you're talking online, and the next thing you know, they want money from you.
Yeah. Wow.
And you send money online to them without even meeting them.
Wow.
That's romance scam. Then there's the tech support scam. That's another scam. The grandparent scam, and I'll share a story, 2 stories about the grandparent scam. Government impersonation, CRA calling to say you owe CRA.
Yeah.
Other people calling to say like you ordered stuff and you didn't pay.
I get calls like that all the time. I'm like,
Okay.
I didn't order anything.
Fake price scam, home repair scam, investment scam, caregiving financial scam. All of those scams are out there. Be aware. For example, grandparent scam is one of the newest scam that is around, where they call you to tell you your grandchild is in jail, or your grandchild is in the hospital, and they're acting on behalf of your grandchild and demand money from you. Here's a story. A friend of mine, a close friend, got a call to say her granddaughter, who is in university in Ottawa, was in a car accident. And that when they stopped, the police came, they found 2 loaded guns in the back of the car, and they arrested the granddaughter. The grandmother is to bring $10,000 to go to the bank, get $10,000, and to meet this individual with this money at a certain spot near her apartment building, but not to be close enough to the camera where the camera could identify the receiver of this money. This is a true story. She went to 2 banks. She went to TD, she got $5,000. She went to RBC, she got $5,000. She came back. Now she has 2 sons. She never called any of her sons. Her husband died a few years ago. Never called any of her sons. She got the money, put it in a paper bag as they told her. They said, don't stand near your apartment where the camera can see you. Go out in the yard and someone will come and pick up the bag of money from you. In fact, she went out away from the apartment, a young black guy, and I'm saying they're using the young black guys to commit these crimes. Because it was a black woman, so they send a young black guy to pick up this money. She gave him the $10,000 cash. One of the things that we're to be aware of is that the bank is supposed to say to you, what are you doing with that amount of cash? Some banks do and some do not. They're supposed to ask you, what are you doing with that amount of cash? They didn't ask her. She gave that $10,000 to those individuals and they were gone. Her son called her and said, Mom, I'm coming over to see you today. She was sad, and the son said, you sound sad, are you okay? And she said, yeah, you can come and have lunch. And when he came, he prompted her, and she finally told him what happened. She went to the news, and they came and interviewed her at home. One of the banks gave her back $5,000. She's still waiting on the other bank to give her the other $5,000 back, because the bank is not supposed to give an elderly person that amount of cash.
Mm-hmm. Just in case of certain circumstances.
Just
like
in
this,
case,
yeah.
because of grandparent and all the other scams that are happening. Mm-hmm. So she's still waiting to get that $5,000. Another one of my friends, they told her CRA is coming to get her. She went to the bank, but she was having early Alzheimer's. She forgot what to do. She came back home. A friend was visiting. They called her back. The friend went on the phone and said to the individual on the line, I'm calling the police right now. Mm. And they left her. But I have a feeling they might call her again. Yeah. But these are the scams that are happening. And seniors, be aware. Be aware. Do not answer your phone. Hang up your phone when these calls come in. Mm-hmm. You do not have to give any information to anyone. So these are some of the scams. Take a look at them. Romance, text scam, grandparent, government schemes, fake price scam, home repair scam. Home repair scam is another one. They will come in and tell you that they're going to repair your home, and they ask you for an advance and never come back. Mm. Investment scam, caregiver scam. Caregivers come in and they're supposed to give you care. They can rip you off too. Just be careful. Mm-hmm. When in nursing home, sometimes there are inappropriate or inaccurate diagnosis. And sometimes you get over-medicated. Oh, yeah. Especially when you're having early Alzheimer's. They tie you down in a chair. When they tie you in a chair, you can have blood clots because you're not moving. In order for your blood to flow properly, you have to be actively moving. But they tie you in a chair. They get you out of bed, put you in a chair, tie you down. The only time you get up is if you're going to the bathroom or if they're changing your clothes. That creates blood clots and you can die early. So those are some of the situations that happen to elderly people.
Yeah. Why do they tie them down? Why do they tie them down?
Because Alzheimer's tend to wander. When they have Alzheimer's, they tend to wander, and they don't have enough staff to watch you. Oh, there's not enough staff in the nursing home to watch. Sometimes one nurse might have 10 or 11 patients that they're caring for, or even more. So those are situations that occur and that, family members have to be aware of.
How can we prevent it except for just noticing and coming to visit? But
Visit as often as you can. Visit as often, or if you have a friend in a nursing home, try to visit as often as you can.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Earlier, when you were talking about the incident with the money, and
Yes.
giving the money, I was thinking, sitting here, I'm thinking, well, going off away from the camera, that sounds really suspicious. But I'm sure in the moment, you know, you're scared. You hear that. What did they say, that there were guns in the backseat of the car?
Yes.
So you want it to
And
just
she
go
was
away.
she was
and stuff.
arrested.
So that can probably happen more times than I'm really thinking. So
Yeah, it happens more time. I can tell you, my aunt got that same call that her son in California was in a car accident and he was at fault and he was arrested. That's a real story. Every story that I've told you about, they are real story. She was online with this individual, and her daughter, who works for the region of Peel, was working from home and heard her mom talking upstairs. And she came up and said, "Mom, who are you talking to?" And Mom didn't want to say anything. What prevented the fraud from happening? The daughter came up and said, and she told her what was happening reluctantly because they threatened them not to share it with anyone.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And then they become scared and won't share it. So the daughter asked, "What's going on, Mom? I heard you talking to someone. What is that about?" Finally,
Good for the daughter to
yes,
be asking.
yes.
Oh, okay, because
Yeah.
you never know. Yeah.
That's right. Finally, the mom said, "I got a call to say Glenn is in jail. He caused an accident and he's in jail and I'm to send 10,000. So the daughter said to her mom, "Ask what Glenn's middle name is." And she went back on the phone, called him and said, "What is my son's middle name?" They couldn't give the middle name. They hung up. And that was the end of that.
Nice.
So sometimes one of the things you can ask is something about your son that is unique.
That only you would know. Yeah.
Unique only to you and your family.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yes.
If you had no one else to ask.
Exactly.
But if they had like a sibling or something, I would call and be like, "Do you know where so and so
And when
is?"
she called her son,
Yeah.
he said, "Mom, I'm working. I'm not in any accident." So that prevented that fraud from happening. And right in Mississauga, these 3 frauds happen in the city of Mississauga. So it's close to home.
So it's not some unknown
No,
faraway
it's not
place,
unknown.
send money from Zurich.
It's right here in the city of Mississauga. So again, those individuals watching online, those in the audience, please be aware that it is at your doorstep and can happen to you.
Yes. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to, when they tell you to not tell anyone, that's probably when you might need to tell someone.
Exactly. Okay, elder abuse outside of nursing home. We talk about the fraud, and what they want to do is to frustrate the mind of the elderly by using a known person to kidnap a close relative and demand a money or a ransom. So we talked about that and how to prevent scam. It would be advised that the home is monitored with a camera, and telephone too should be monitored by putting your conversation into recording in case of any misinformation. So while you're talking on the phone, you could learn to record what was being said so that if a family member comes by, they could get some of that information. And advice to elderly, don't fall for these classic scams. Protect yourself from robocalls. Quickly call the relative around before falling to the victim. Don't be afraid to call a close family member to say, "I get this call."
Yes.
Because you're calling from a distance, you're not at your house. So you can call a family member and let them know what is happening. Don't be afraid to call a family member or a trusted friend. If you belong to a church, call your pastor, call somebody, that is close to you that you can trust. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, we talked about the grandma scam already. And I talked about the $10,000 that my friend had paid out. And the bank is yet to give her the other $5. But her son went on the news, and it was on the news. They interviewed her in her apartment. So again, that is real. Again, that is important that you pay attention to those callers. And you do not have to have a conversation with those callers. Hang up your phone.
Hang up the phone.
Don't have a conversation with those scam callers. And when someone said a family member, your granddaughter is in an accident, or there is a legal process. Always remember that. The police will come to your house. The police will be calling you, not an unknown person.
Exactly, yeah.
And you will see that it's Peel police calling, or a police will come to your house to say, your daughter is in a serious accident, we're going to take you, or you can call your son or call someone. You don't have to be in it alone. Don't trust those scam calls because they're dangerous.
Yes.
Okay? So, safety planning checklist. I have there, stop elder abuse. Write down the emergency contact list and keep them safe. So on my phone, I have my emergency contact. In my daily calendar, I have my emergency contact that I travel with my daily calendar with me, and I have my emergency contact. On my phone, I have my son, and I have the 5 girls. Only one boy, 5 girls. I have their names, emergency contact, if anything happens to me. Emergency money for a cab. If you're stranded somewhere, you have emergency for a cab to come home. If you're in an area that you need some clothing, carry some extra clothing. Your list of medication.
Yes, that's important.
Yeah.
Your doctor information,
yes,
right?
and your doctor and pharmacy. Have that list available. All necessary daily items like your glasses, your hearing aid, other devices like your walker or your wheelchair. Add an extra key for your home, your vehicle, etc. And elderly people that are driving, because I am driving. I drive an expensive vehicle. And what is happening nowadays is that people will come near your car, flag you down, and if you stop, open your window to talk to them, before you know it, they pull you out and take your car. That is happening, so be mindful of that. A friend of mine was here in Brampton a couple years ago. There was a guy in the street begging in the parking lot at the supermarket, the Shoppers World. The guy asked her for money. When she lifted up her purse to give the guy the money, the guy took her whole purse and took off. These are true experiences that I'm sharing. These are facts. And I'm encouraging elderly people to be mindful, to be careful, and take precaution when you're driving. I was driving the other day and a young man approached my vehicle. I stopped to come out. Could you give me a ride down the corner? And I said, no. And I wind up my window because he was coming directly in my car. I said, what do you want? Could you drop me down the road? And I said, no, there's a bus stop right there. Yeah. But again, be careful. Don't take in strangers. Don't open your door to strangers. Have a hole that you can see through. Come to the window. Speak through the window. Don't open your door because they can come in and harass you. Next slide. So here are some health effects. Long-term abuse and neglect are significant sources of stress. Living with abuse can significantly increase a person's chance of becoming ill or increase the risk of early death. As a result, older adults often experience worry, depression, and anxiety. Older adults may also feel shame, guilt, or embarrassment that someone in the family or someone close has harmed them, so they don't want to share that information. They're ashamed to share it with anyone.
And they live with that their whole
Yes, family member may abuse them. You have seen on the news where kids have murdered their parent.
Yeah.
That's been on the news. And I'm just encouraging you just to be aware. I don't want any senior listening to me, I don't want you to be worried. I don't want you to be fearful. I just want you to be cautious. I don't want you to be anxious that this is going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to you unless you allow it to happen. So this is a preventative measure.
Yeah, to just
I'm
look
sure
for signs
prevention.
and don't get yourself in that kind of situation.
Exactly. It's prevention. It's not the facts. It's things that happen to other people that you do not want to happen to you. Some abuse, elderly may start to eat less, sleep less, use more medication, drink alcohol to help them cope with the emotional and physical hurt. Some abused adults may lose interest in life and may have suicidal thoughts. And financial effects. Some seniors have experienced financial abuse, may lose their home, personal belonging or money. Like my friend, she's living with other people. She had a house paid off for her. And a family member mortgaged her house. Be aware. Be careful who you add to your bank account. If you have 6 children, look at the one that manages money very well. Look at the one that you think that will manage your money or will work with you to manage your money. Know your children. Know them. It's so important that you do that. I'm encouraging you to do that. Learn the one that you can trust, the one that you believe will be able to assist you when you're in need. Not that they don't love you,
No,
but they have issues in their own lives that they're dealing with. And sometimes their issue can impact you. Okay, so that's just to be careful. Seniors who have experienced financial abuse may lose their homes, personal belongings, or money, leaving them unable to pay for food, prescription, other necessities, transportation. Elderly people may have less money to care for their own health, housing, and activities when abusers steal or control their money or property. The social effects, the consequences of abuse and neglect can also be passed down from one generation to the next. So things are passed down generationally. So if you were to look in your family line, there's something on TV called, I forget what it's called, where you can look back and see what your family line was like. Ancestral something.
Yeah.
So you can take a look at that. Things are passed down generationally. And financial management can be one of them. Elder abuse can be one of them. It's important. It has an impact on people or individual, family, community, and societal level. So those things that happen generationally can come down. You may not be able to control what your child does to you. And your child may not even be able to control it themselves. unless they get help, unless they recognize something is wrong here. I need to get some counseling. I need to get some help. Okay? Next slide, please. Signs and symptoms of elder abuse. Victim of elder abuse may show signs of depression. We've talked about that. Unexplained physical injuries. We talked about that. Sexual abuse, ripped and torn clothing, clothes stained, bruises on thighs or genitals, those things. Lack of food, clothing, and other necessity. Verbal abuse. Depression and withdrawal, changing in hygiene and nutrition, signs of malnutrition, failure to meet financial obligation, unusual banking withdrawals. So here is what I noticed. One of my friends asked me to go with her to the bank. Right now she's in the hospital, and when I leave here, I'm going to the hospital to meet with her family so that they can make arrangement for support at her home. What happens to her? She has been having unusual withdrawal from her account. What has happened, she gave her card to someone to get money from her account, and they were using the card to withdraw thousands of dollars from her account.
Oh.
A family member had to change the bank account card and put their name in the account so that they be notified if there are any unusual withdrawal. So those are precautions that seniors need to take. Again, make sure you do not give your card or your number to people that come in and act friendly. Don't give them your bank card. Don't give them your access code. Be careful what you do, because you can be abused financially.
Yes.
Just to share that.
Trust someone that you've known for a while.
Exactly.
Not someone that
Exactly.
you don't know what their intentions are, right? You've
Not
just met
even
them.
not even your family member you don't
Yeah.
know. You just have to learn to understand what is impacting that individual. If your family member, one of the things I've developed personally for myself, I do not lend my kids money, I give it to them.
Really?
I do not lend my kids money, I give it to them. Because if they're having financial issues that they have to come to borrow from me, how are they going to pay me back? Think about it. How are you going to pay me back when you're not managing
When you're not managing your own
your
money
own
well.
finance? So I would rather write them a check rather than lend them a check.
Well, as long as they don't keep asking for too many
No,
checks and
I
take
manage
advantage.
that. I manage that.
Okay,
Manage that.
You got that.
Okay? So again, I encourage you just to be mindful of what you're doing. Next slide, please. So here are some reporting lines. Long-term care action line, you can call. Retirement Home Regulatory Authority. If you're in there and you're feeling abused, you can make a phone call. And there's support for victims, for senior safety online, women assault line, and for counseling support in Mississauga, there are lines that you can call.
We'll have this information posted on our website within the next day or two.
I believe that's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions? Were there any questions?
Yeah, do we have any questions for from the comment section? That was a lot of information, but it was really important.
Yes, yes. And Fruitful community can keep this presentation, and if they want to show it to,
is it okay for us to post
yes,
it online?
Of course,
somewhere?
of course,
Yeah? Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
Post it online so that people can take a look at it.
Take a look
It's
at the
very
vision.
important that I want that information to be out there. I want the seniors to be aware. I want their families to be aware of what's happening out there, and so that they can protect themselves. So share it online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. This YouTube video will be available online afterwards. But just in case you can't see the backdrop here very well, yeah, we'll post up the PowerPoint presentation as well. Oh, I got some comments from the section. That is so rude. How can someone kick a senior? Oh, here's a question. What are some of the ways to advocate for a senior that is suffering from abuse? So I guess they're not like your personal one. Maybe you just, like maybe they're one that comes through Fruitful Communities and you've seen them.
Exactly.
How can you advocate for them if you're not really knowing them so well? What can you do?
Well, one of the things that has to happen first, there has to be a relationship.
Okay.
Unless you're somewhere and you see a senior being abused, then you can take action. For example, if you were to go to the mall and see someone abusing a senior, or wherever you are and see someone abusing a senior, then you could call for help on behalf of that senior. If you do not know the senior and you have this information, you could give them this information. For example, we have a seniors program at Akon to Oak, and so if you call Akon to Oak, then you would be able to get some information. And we have someone from Fruitful Community that is at Akon to Oak right now that is watching. She will be able to give that information to any senior that want that information.
Yeah, maybe we should just have it readily available.
Yes.
So
yes.
someone could just take a little piece of paper kind
That's
of thing.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
All right, so well, I think that's all we have, the questions we have for right now. I think it's a lot of information. People are still processing. Maybe they're thinking about things in their own life or ways that they can help. So
ways that you can help or be aware. This program is an awareness program, just to be aware of what's happening in the community, be aware of how you can abuse and the different types of abuse that are out there and the resources that are available for you to get some support and help. There's always support. There's advocacy out there for seniors, and we want all seniors to be aware. And just if you feel that you're abused in any way, you can make a phone call to someone who would advocate for you. The bank is supposed, one of the things that the bank must do is to make sure you do not withdraw too much cash. For example, at my home, I was refacing my kitchen, and I went to get $2,500, a money order for $2,500 for this repairman. And when I went into the bank and was asking for this money, the teller said to me, "Do you know this person?" And I thought, wow. "Do you know this person you're taking $2,500 to give to?" I said, "Yes."
Nice that they asked. That's all it took.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was so, I felt so good that you asked me that question. So some banks do ask those questions, but others do not. So just be aware of those situations, because you can be defrauded from your income that way. Things that you've worked for to keep you in old age can just be wiped out. There was a man on TV yesterday on CP24. He lost $100,000 in grandparent scam.
Wow.
Grandparent scam is another active scam you have to watch for.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, thank you so much for all that information. Thank you for joining us here at Fruitful Communities. I'm sorry that we have to wrap up because it's really important, but I'm glad that we got it out there and we're going to have the information available. So we appreciate you coming to talk to us and letting us know how we can prevent it. So yeah, this workshop will continue to be available on YouTube. Feel free to rewatch any parts you've missed or that are particularly interesting. Next week, here at Fruitful Communities, we have 2 more workshops. Monday's workshop is The Joy of Jollof. Come and learn at 11 a.m. to cook jollof rice, taught by one of our own regular seniors here at Fruitful Communities. Also, next week on Tuesday, same time, 11 a.m., we have an informational workshop called Safety for Seniors, presented by the Peel Region Police Crime Prevention Unit. That should be interesting. So that's next week, Monday, December 12th, and Tuesday, December 13th at 11 a.m. This will be available online, but I strongly encourage you to come out and visit us here. We have refreshments, good conversation, and maybe you can come out and socialize. We'd love to hear from you. We're just near the airport. Visit us on fruitfulcommunities.com. Thank you.